We are seeing a huge structural crisis starting in the Toronto real estate market. In April of 2025, we've seen listings continue to increase, and now we're actually seeing the prices coming down significantly. Today, we're going to talk about what's happening and run through the numbers. Now, just quickly, I've been really thinking about this, and what we've seen in the last couple of years is a huge increase in demand, and then literally the demand being pulled right back out. So, government policy in the last couple of years has done a couple of things: massive immigration, bringing the demand up very high, added a little bit of COVID craziness, people kind of emotionally buying, interest rates being super low. You had that massive increase in 2022 where the prices went way, way up. So from 2014 to 2022, the prices went way up. Then we turn around, we literally stifled demand by sucking out all that demand out of the economy. So basically, what they've done is they've stopped the immigration, they've lowered the amount of foreign students that are allowed in the country, lowered the amount of foreign investors, literally like throwing the condo builders like over because they were actually building, thinking that we're having a housing crisis. A lot of the information right now is not really showing that we have so much of a housing crisis in the amount of numbers of houses being available for people, but more so just literally in the prices and the market. What we're seeing right now is the demand really, really dropping down for houses. We're seeing tons of inventory building in the market. In fact, some of the highest inventory we've ever seen, the highest inventory we've seen in 12 years. And we've seen a 30% drop in condo sales volume. So we're going to go through the numbers and I'm going to explain to you exactly what's happening. Here is what's happening in the Toronto market. So this is for April of 2025. As you can see by these numbers, we have a drop in sales of minus 23.3%. Now, keep in mind that this is versus April of 2024, which was also a very bad year. And last month in March, we saw over a 50% decrease in the sales. So this is the amount of actual sales that come in the market. Now, along with that, we have an increase of listings of 8.1%. So that means the number of new listings. Now we have 54% active listings, an increase of 54% of active listings in the market. And along with that, you have the average price dropping about 4.1%. And you have your property days on market also increasing. I mean, it's not terrible, taking around a month to sell on average, but we're seeing some areas where that's taking a lot longer. Now, today I'm also going to explain to you a couple of other things. One is there are definitely areas in Toronto that are actually doing just great. So let's talk a little bit about, sales over time. What you can see in this video is you had that huge kind of peak, back here in 2022, and then you see your sales, kind of dropping down. They always kind of create like a bit of a zigzag depending on the time of the year. What's really important to look at though is that trend is going down. You're seeing with that price going down, that's a continued trend. Now we were talking a little bit about, how significant this whole problem really is, because a lot of people are saying we no longer have just prices dropping and inventory building. We're actually seeing what we call a structural shift. We've talked to people who sold in like the early 90s, early 2000s. What you're seeing is that we have massive problems that are just going to continue to build, and this is not changing. Now, we've got about 12 to 18 months to see what's really going to set the trend for the next 5 years. If this doesn't start to change, what we're going to see is this is going to continue to get worse. Okay, so average prices come down a little bit. So we're seeing April 25 versus 24. We're seeing the price overall coming down in the market. You're seeing this is kind of your trend line, and you can see the price kind of coming down there also. And there's like kind of a little bit of a closer view of it. From this one here, it gives you the prices, over the past couple of years. You can see as they've come down, the orange line is where we're at now. Okay, I wanted to really point this chart out to you because I think that this is really interesting and really important. So we talked about what areas have the most months of inventory. So you're seeing, kind of that central area in Toronto. I'm just going to go back over to here so I can show you what I'm talking about. So you've got this area called C1 and this area called C8. those areas there are where we're having the worst problems in the city with building up of inventory. And those are mostly, kind of new build condos. As you know, you can see them all downtown, kind of on either side of Yonge Street, Bay Street, that kind of thing. You're seeing like a ton of condos coming up for sale that are not selling through. So you're seeing crazy things happening with the inventory building up there. I want you to kind of look a little bit at what's happening in Roncesvalles area over here, because what you can see is that the inventory is, around 3.7 months, so that's not too bad. And then the average price of a detached or of an average price of any home in the Roncesvalles area, for example, is $1.5 million, which is actually pretty good. It's quite a bit above average. And as I was saying, we have a break from really what's happening in the rest of the city in a couple of areas. So while your C1 and C8, like downtown, your downtown areas are doing very poorly, what you're seeing is you've got pockets like Roncesvalles actually still doing quite well. Let's just add just a little bit more context to what's happening. So as I was saying, you had a massive demand increase a couple of years ago. Now you have a massive drop in demand coming in. And now I think what we're really having here is not so much of a availability crisis of homes, because I think there are now homes available. I think they're just simply too expensive. So regardless of whether people want a home, in a lot of cases, they're just not able to buy them. And so we're seeing, even though people want them, they're not buying them. So this crisis is kind of building up structurally. And I think that what we're really finally seeing is there's like the prices are just simply too high for a lot of people. And we had that kind of demand coming in from like other countries or maybe people with more money, that kind of thing. And I think really what's happened is they've just all that pent-up pressure in a couple of years drove up that demand. People paid a lot of money, and now we're literally seeing that demand pulled back out of the market, leaving us in a situation where we've got tons of people who are renewing their mortgages. This year, as you know, there's about 60% of mortgages are being renewed. People who bought it like 1-2%, who are now going to have to renew at, say, 4 or 5%, so a 30% increase in their mortgage cost. As you all know, most families can't really handle a 30% increase in their mortgage cost. We're not talking about $500. We're talking, a couple of $1,000s a month potentially. People are saying, well, maybe we could just rent part of this, but we're also seeing the rental market is actually dropping right now in terms of prices. I've been able to actually negotiate a bunch of prices down for people who wanted, really nice condos. We also have this big challenge with the assignment sales, and we've talked a little bit about that, but basically the builders are in a situation where the builders are in trouble because people are not closing their pre-built condos. Now our government is finally going to come in and build houses, but are we really even right now, does this actually even make sense? Because we could, in the next couple of years, have like this massive glut of condos kind of sitting on the market. And then all of a sudden we start to build, a whole bunch of new homes. Does that even make sense? No, I think there's exceptions to that rule. And I think there's definitely people who probably need like government built social assisting type homes. In your kind of mainstream market, I'm a little bit worried that if we add a whole pile of like purpose built kind of general homes, what's really going to happen here? And another big problem is that you're basically going to have like a whole bunch of people potentially, kind of losing their homes. Now, is that really fair to create more housing inventory? So, we've got a couple of places, even one, like people are stuck because they have like the banks coming in, they want their money because you're not paying your mortgage, but you can't sell your house because it's now worth less than you paid for it, and you're just like really stuck. So we are seeing some structural problems coming into the market. So what I would suggest is, kind of stay tuned. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. It creates definitely some opportunities for people to get into the market. I think now more than ever, it's really important for people to pay attention to what's happening. If you like this video, it would be awesome if you could just click like below so more people would see it. Okay, cheers. Thanks so much.